everybody, welcome to the Block 9 Live Lounge. No, we don't need this cold weather gear anymore. Spring has finally come and it's on one of the hottest days of the year so far. What a fantastic day. Anyway, good evening to you all and pleased to have you join us tonight. We have got a good show, an exciting show for you tonight. Let me just check my hair. Does it look all right, guys? Yeah, there we go. So tonight, yeah, I know, shake your heads with embarrassment. Emma can only apologise. Yes, that's it. We have Emma joining us tonight as well. Paramedic Emma, as known on X, for those of you that follow on X. But first of all, let me just give you a bit of a rundown on what we're going to do on tonight's live lounge. So we're going to basically talk about, obviously, the current news that's come out over the last few days on Argyle. So we'll give a bit of a rundown on that. And then we're going to talk about Emma and find out a bit more about Emma. It's great to have you on, Emma. We have been looking to get some Argyle ladies involved as well because we want to mix it up with our show that we do. So it's fantastic that Emma's come on with us tonight. And then we're going to go and talk about our main topic tonight. For those of you that don't know, we do our Sunday shows at 6:30 as a Block 9 podcast, which is generally the post-match analysis. But also we started recently, we're in our 4th episode here, as you can see from the title, on our live lounge. And this is a bit more of a late evening. Kids are all in bed. And we can then just talk a bit more about Argyle, but also focus on some key topics. So recently we've done stuff on, the sort of structure of the club, leadership last week, and then week before that we did the investment and what that could look like. From Gavin presented that, so that was fantastic. So tonight it's Andy's turn as we talk about how the situation that we find us in and where players and other clubs and fans do, and the sort of psychological effects that can have. So look, we hope you will stay with us tonight to listen to that. But first, let's do a little bit of a news roundup. So a couple of bits really. Obviously, we're in international break, so it's a bit quiet. But we do have Maxi Talaveros has come back and returned from international duty no sooner after arriving due to a knee injury from a knock that he picked up in the Derby game. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that isn't too serious. We also had some birthday shout-outs this past week. Ryan Hardy, Brendan Galloway and Tegan Finn. Hopefully I've not missed anyone there. But interesting, Tegan Finn wasn't announced by the club. We may touch upon that later. And tonight, or earlier on this evening, Bundu scored a goal for Sierra Leone. So that was good until he got subbed before half time. So let's hope he hasn't taken a knock.
He has.
So hopefully, all the players are having a bit of a rest because it seems to be that way with the lack of content coming out. That's for sure. But let me introduce everybody tonight. So we do have some of the usual Block 9 crew. So Andy, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening. Yeah, really good, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to tonight. Looking forward to some different content tonight as well. Welcome, Emma.
Excellent. Cool. Carl, good evening. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you, mate.
Excellent. And Gavin, he's fixed his lights, but he's still in the dark. So coming out of the shade, Gavin, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Good evening, everybody.
Excellent. So our new guest tonight, Emma, thank you very much for joining us tonight. How are you doing at the minute?
Yeah, not too bad. I was on night shift last night, so I'm a little bit confuzzled as to what time it is and what day it is. But never mind.
You made the show, so that's the most important thing. That's of all else. That's that. Sleep is obviously too, but obviously from your title on your Twitter handle, you're clearly a paramedic. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm paramedic down in Kingsbridge. So I'm one of the South Hams fans, travelling every match day. I've got a season ticket in the Lower Mayflower. So I'm normally absolutely soaking wet most of the time. It's not been too bad this season, actually. I've only had to use my dry robe once or twice. But I work at Kingsbridge, but I'm at Derriford an awful lot. I work in Plymouth an awful lot. Born and bred. I've been an Argyle fan since probably when I was about 8. I think my dad took me the first time. And I just heard all sorts of language that I'd never heard in my life. Learned what a wanker
Gavin
was.
later. That's from Gavin, yeah.
What's
didn't
one of
know-
them then?
Yeah, what's one of those? But apparently the referee was one, like
Right,
every
okay.
time I went. So yeah, I've just kind of obviously supported Argyle, but being a teenage girl, it wasn't that cool to be a Argyle fan. So I didn't really know anybody else, any other girls that were a fan. I went to university up in Middlesbrough. So nobody was a fan of Argyle up there, obviously. But I did actually go to the Darlington match when we won up there back in the early 2000s. I was on my own in the away end with everybody. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and I try and keep up with it as much as I can. And I've had a season ticket now the last 3 seasons. But yeah, before that, didn't get to see as many matches as I wanted to, really.
Yeah, and you've obviously got a young family as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old boy. I took my littlest one to the Cardiff match a few weeks ago. That was his first experience of Argyle, so that was good. He absolutely rinsed me for like everything. I bought him stuff out the shop. He had chips, he had drinks, sweets, like Pilgrim Pete stuff, but he loved it. So I think I've encouraged him. He's going to be an Argyle fan no matter what.
We'll have to send a Block 9 mug. There you go.
Positive influence there, Emma. Yeah.
Merch, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, you supported Argyle for quite a while. I got sort of myself into it through a neighbour. My dad's a big Ipswich Town fan because that's where he's from. I mean, you can't fault him for that, can we? But but he was in the Commando, so away a lot. So yeah, sort of I ended up sort of getting into it sort of early teens, really, a little bit later than most, and then you sort of picked up with it a bit later on from that. You know, when I was old enough to start sort of considering going myself, and yeah, I can't remember how many years. I think I had a blip a few years ago where I didn't renew for circumstances, but yeah, being a season ticket holder in the Block 9 for a long time. So yeah, so look, what we'll do, Emma, is we're gonna sort of get Andy to present us his presentation tonight, so we can sort of understand and just discuss. Like I said, guys and girls, this is all about just a more relaxed approach to what we do as the Block 9. I'll put myself back up on the screen there. So yeah, you know, we just want to take our content on different angles, and also just from a point with Emma. So if we've got, and hopefully we do have other Argyle ladies watching, we do want to get a couple of you more involved, and we've got some ideas that I've shared with Emma earlier. So, you know, come and get involved, you know, get in touch with myself or the channel, or even Emma if you know Emma, and you know, let's see what we can do. So without further ado, Andy, I'm now going to go to the presentation mode.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. Yeah, we're talking about tonight the psychological effects on footballers and fans alike. We forgot to add that little fans alike because we all suffer as well. And what we're going to be looking through sort of physical, the mental side of it. So the demands that football has on the prowess and stuff, and also the mental game, because you know they're equally sort of linked together, if you like. So, and they're both critical for that success. And we're going to look at performance factors as well. Psychological elements, you know, directly affect that performance quality. The influence your motivation as well. You know, you imagine with 16,000 pounds on your back, you know, all slating you, and you suddenly got to perform in front of all these people. So it's a really tough ask for some of our players. And our focus is that we're going to explore the critical mental challenges that footballers face every day. We'll also examine the proven strategies for building mental resilience. So if you're sitting comfortably, then we'll begin. Anything on that, guys? Anything you want to bring into that?
I think it's important, isn't it? That it's something we don't always see day to day. You know, it affects us all, I think, in many different ways. And as we explore that and express that throughout this presentation, you know, you'll start to relate, I think, people that are following and watching. And stick some comments in, please, guys, as well, to share your thoughts. Yeah,
let's have the comments and questions. If you've got any questions, guys, please send them into the chat, and we'll see if we can answer them for you. So I'm going to move on to the common psychological challenges that footballers face. Performance anxiety. You look at the pressure. Again, we've just talked about the pressure to perform in front of 15, 16, 17,000 fans or more. If you're a Man United fan, 70,000 fans. If you're an England fan, you know, 80, 90,000 fans. The stress that creates, and it will affect you in all aspects of game, because The decision making is crucial. You've got to get that 5-yard pass to your colleague, and play goes through from your opponents and scores a goal. That's down to you. So, that brings in very neatly to the sort of fear of failure that a player might have. So I'm going to take you back to Chelsea in the Cup a couple of years ago. Ryan Hardy's stepping up to take a penalty, right, against Chelsea to get a draw at Stamford Bridge. And the keeper saves it. So what sort of effect that had on Hardy? He had to carry that for the team. Thankfully, we had a team of players around him who supported him, got him through that, and we got to the next game. I forget who we played. It might have been Accrington, but we won 4-1. And he scored a hat-trick. So, it just goes to show that if you've got a good team around you to boost you and to sort of bring you back to ground, if you like, because he must have been on the floor after missing that pen and probably cost an Argyle a fair bit of money in the Cup. So, the fear of failure is there.
All that money for infrastructure spending, Andy?
Oh man, I tell you, the infrastructure is there as well. But the guys, the players do worry about that, and they must think about the effect it has on the fans as well. When you're hearing your name called out, we hear it week after week with Hardy at the moment, don't we? He's in your head, Hardy, and that gives them a boost, doesn't it? But if you've got someone really going at you, berating you, and giving you stick because you haven't performed well, that's going to really, disinterest you and demotivate you and stuff. And then we'll go on to the obvious things, so the burnout sort of stuff. So, Argyle's training regime under Rooney was quite intense, and we had a lot of injuries and burnout as well. I'll add into that as well the amount of times we have to travel away from Plymouth, 2 hours to our nearest ground. Unless we're in League One playing that lot up the road, like 2 hours to Bristol City or something like that, and then you have to go further again. And so you're traveling long distances. That's exhausting in itself, and fatigue alongside that training and alongside those long journeys must come into factor. This is not making excuses. This is not, Marcus, the infrastructure again. This is not making excuses for the players because they are professionals. Yes, we'll hear that argument that people will have to play for their club, irrespective. But they are just humans like me and you, like paramedics, like counsellors, like people that work in big department stores,
Andy, I think that's just an interesting point, actually, as you just mentioned what Emma does. Emma, we all have different sort of jobs, but in the role that you do, that there's a lot there that you could relate to, I suppose. Sort of you've got to perform when the incident or the call of duty occurs. You want to make sure that you do the best for your patient.
But in the role that you
there's
do,
a lot of commitment there, and all that lot. The only one, I suppose, is the media pressure. Not so relatable maybe, but yeah, you can obviously relate to a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously for the footballers it's not a life and death thing, but I think sometimes, like you said, the amount of pressure that they have, it seems like the biggest thing in the world, doesn't it? That missed penalty or that performance that you don't put in and you let a goal in, or like Better a few weeks ago, own goal, and he's probably berating himself for that. You have to perform. I also think people focus a lot on how much they get paid, as if like the money makes them try harder or something. Like they're like, oh, they get paid to be a good footballer. Well, yeah, but you're a human being. You're going to make mistakes. You can't always be perfect. It doesn't matter how much money you get paid. Like, you're going to have bad weeks. You're going to be under pressure. And like you said, there's a lot more sports psychology now, isn't there, to try and get them into the right headspace. But if you're not that kind of person, it can be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin, any points from Andy's initial slide there? Yeah, you want to add?
I think the other thing that's probably overlooked quite often is the psychological effects of losing. It's like when things are going well at work, you'll lose more energy. I find when you're up against it at work, you can't wait for the bell to ring to go home. So if you're getting pumped 5-1, 6-1, 4-0. I imagine that the psychological and physical burnout is that threshold comes much quicker than it would do if you're winning 4-0 every week and you can run through a brick wall and you've got energy after the game. And it's a funny old thing, the brain, isn't it? I'm sure that the medical professional amongst us will tell us, but you can do a lot if you're in a right positive mindset. And if you're in a negative mindset, I can imagine it goes the other way quite quickly.
Yeah.
Go on, Andy.
Yeah, so and then the last thing on this particular slide is we're talking about media pressure, and we'll talk about that a bit more detail a bit later on. But the pressure from media to succeed, fans are out there on X or Facebook or whatever social media platform they're on. Again, sort of putting that pressure on players to succeed. Or we've all done it before in our lives as well. We said, "Oh, well, we're going to go to Cardiff this weekend. We'll beat them. We'll beat them on paper, and he beat them easy, and then we lose." And so you're putting that pressure on. And it works the other way as well. Said, I don't think we're going to win that game, Liverpool. And then we go and win it. So sometimes it's like reverse psychology. But we'll go into more of that later on with media.
It's like when players say they don't kind of read social media. I'm sure a good proportion of them do. And
you can't
a lot of them probably take that to heart when they see the comments.
Yeah, you can't avoid it.
The other interesting point was Miron's first infamous / famous speech was around, we're in the spotlight 24/7. We're owned by the club. We're constantly in the spotlight as footballers, but as humans, I won't touch you. But as a footballer, I'll criticise you. That type of stuff, which again leads very much into this whole psychological challenge piece of constantly being in the press, and if the boys lose and then one's pictured on the Barbican having a quiet beer, there's like 50 people jumping on his back going, "Oh, what are you doing down the Barbican? We lost." Well, if you have a bad day at work, where'd you go? You go for a quiet pint. But if you're a footballer, you're not allowed to do that. You've got to sit at home and rewatch the game and do keepy-ups in the lounge or whatever.
Yeah, we've had the other side of that, Gab, didn't we? When we won promotion up at Port Vale, we won the championship, and all the players were out in the Barbican, and you could see the dance stars and all that, getting drunk and Ballymumbas and all that. Going out and having a good time.
The following day, they were also absolutely hammered, and everyone was like worshipping Scar.
Thankfully, we're down in the game afterwards.
If we'd lost and he'd been turned up the training drunk, he'd have been absolutely mullered.
Yeah,
works both ways.
Yeah, it does. Right, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. Any questions in chat, Mike? If you keep an eye on the questions in chat, and I'll try to answer as we go along.
Will do.
But moving on to the common... Oh, hang on. There we go. Yeah, that's it. A little lag there. So the stress impact on performance. So we've talked about performance already and how that affects players. So, at the top there, you've got that decreased performance, errors increase, that 5-yard pass doesn't make it. And then all of a sudden you've got your opponents in on goal, and, concede a goal. And that goes into then your cognitive effect, with your impaired decisions. I just made a right balls up there. I'm going to pass that ball again to whoever. And if it doesn't make it this time, I could sort of give another one away, And so you're sort of putting more pressure on you during the game because you haven't made that pass or you haven't sort of scored that penalty. And then you get those physical manifestations. You're looking at cramp, right? We saw that with Cardiff. Cardiff went down with a lot of cramp that day, didn't they? Lots of players going.
The game I wasn't
two at once in one area.
Yeah,
they needed a good physio then, a paramedic on the pitch. But that comes into it as well because all that sort of stress that you're sort of putting out there to play football in front of all these people can sort of manifest itself in physical injury stuff and tension. And then you've got that psychological response, your heart rate, the physiological result, the heart rate is elevated and the cortisol levels go up. And it just adds to all the stress that you're carrying anyway.
Just seeing Sean's comment.
Question in chat. Do you think in your head chant is bad for fans' mental health? It's just a chant, but we get chants. We talked about chants earlier on about referees and the sexuality of the referee or something that he gets up to at the weekend, maybe. So you're going to get those chants. Psychologically, it could affect your opponents, big style, but it could also have an effect where if you're saying, "Oh, that player's in your head," well, who are you, sort of thing. And we'll come onto that a bit later on as well. So when you think that stress sort of directly impairs football's ability, yes, it does. Of course it does. And decision making slows down significantly and reaction times begin to lengthen under pressure. Those 5-yard passes don't certainly make it, So any questions on that, guys?
No, but it's interesting, isn't it, that Miron has said loads and loads of times, actually, and pretty much every time we finished a match, that actually pressure is good. And he's like, that's what is expected. Like, we are under pressure. We're at the bottom of the league. We need to win games. Like, I'm telling the players that some pressure is good. Like, you need that. You need a little bit of it to make you perform and to make you, you should be nervous. You should be a little bit stressed because actually, like you said, increased heart rate, trying to get up for the game. You always hear this about the players trying to get up for the game. It's a 6-pointer. You need to be as excited about this as possible. So there's got to be a little bit of tension, a little bit of stress. Otherwise, they're just going to go out there and not care. But there's a fine line between that and too much, I think.
Well,
and
we've seen this, Emma, haven't we?
Are we at that stage now where some of our players are literally not coping with that stress?
I think we've seen this, haven't we, Emma, in the recent sort of last couple of games, the starts against Pompey, against Derby, where we were on the back foot for the first 10, 15 minutes, and against Pompey we managed to hold them back. They had a couple of good corners coming in. We discussed all that on the post match of that game last live lounge, and then we come to Derby and we started edgy again, and unfortunately then we slipped up from two silly corners, or certainly an early corner as well. That then gave them the edge, and so they probably do go into it, into that game, don't they? But then there's just the pressure around them, and if you slip up, that first goal, importance of that first goal is going to mentally affect you, which was clear. They got back into it, but that's a battle to try and do and see over yourself in that situation as well.
It's just another thing. Miron often says pressure is a privilege. I'm assuming by that he means the fact that they get to kick a football for a living and earn a good lifestyle. But if you look at the recruitment of the character of the people that they've brought in, Katic, Maxi, Pusac, and to a lesser extent probably Boateng, they're all up for a fight. They all seem to thrive under that pressure. Yeah. They all want it. They're all actively asking for it. Whereas I think that we've got a few players in the club who I won't mention, I think would quite happily sort of be quiet in a game, or would sit on the bench if it was a particularly pressured game, because they don't want to let the other team down. I don't think they're not good sportsmen. It's whether you're fight or flight, I suppose. That's probably what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it also works well, Gav, if you've got a good team around you. When you back in the day with Schumacher, even if we lost the game, you had a good team spirit there, and they were all together. I don't think we've quite seen that this season. We haven't had that team spirit there. It's coming back again, I think you'll find. But we certainly haven't had it to the extent we had under Schumacher.
But even under Shuey, we still have that mental kind of block away from home. And that's been a long-standing thing, hasn't it? So hopefully that Pompey result gives us a bit of belief, especially away. We'll see that in the Watford game next week if we've overcome that hurdle.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. In our last live on the Sunday, Martin Ingham, a guy called Martin Ingham, said that wearing the green shirt away from home, has a sort of effect on
Who said that?
We wore the green shirt.
Green shirt and black shorts. Yeah, that is the way forward.
Yeah, white socks.
Yeah,
we just
absolutely. You can tell Gavin likes black, but he's completely dark.
Golden. Sorry,
okay. Any more on that, guy? Shall I move along?
No, move on.
Okay, move on.
Right,
so we're looking at sort of mental resilience, so some strategies, and this is Morgan Whittaker just before the Burnley game. we love Morgan.
Beer in his hand.
We can't slit him now, but there's some strategies that players can put in to build that resilience, if you like, and so we're looking at mental toughness in training. And so that develops a focus, adaptability. You see this, some people like Ronaldo, they've got this toughness, they've got this almost like a focus on what they're doing. And that builds confidence through their mental exercises. So there must be some sort of thing that they can do, or some mantra they maybe chant to themselves before they go out onto the pitch. And then you've got mindfulness practice as well. So you're staying calm under pressure. The amount of pressure that you're under with fans on your back, people on XYZ giving you slating as well, all that pressure, and trying to sort of keep that sort of under control as well.
The famous Clive Woodward an acronym, which was TCUP, with the England rugby team, of thinking clearly under pressure, and in certain aspects of the game, the leader of that particular, whether it be the fly half or the scrum half or the pack lead, would just shout TCUP. Everyone's mind would go, okay, we've got to be like the Miron piece, cool minds, to get us out of certain situations. It's quite interesting, actually.
It's got to have someone like that in the side, though, isn't it? You think, Joe Edwards, for instance, what sort of player he is, rallying the troops and getting them together and geeing the fans up. So yeah, that's it. It does improve, meditation and stuff like that. Like the guy there, he's looking at really peace, isn't he? It improves your sort of focus and your emotional regulation as well. So, and then you've got this sort of visualization stuff as well. Take yourself back to that time when you played. Maybe not at Wembley against Bolton, but when you played at Port Vale, when you played at Port Vale away and you scored the winner, and you in the game, you take yourself back to that and all the good points about football as well. There's a lot of good points about football, and we only seem to hear the negative from the knee-jerk reactions we get on Saturday after Saturday after we lose, and that creates that sort of mental blueprint for performance as well. So, Marcus, what you're saying? Liverpool haven't been the same. They absolutely haven't,
No.
Marcus. Liverpool haven't been the same since they played us.
Thanks to the Green Army.
Quadruple
We ruined
went. And we've talked about support systems, relying on coaches, teammates. Teammates are so important to have that togetherness. I said Joe Edwards is probably a great example for that. And certainly people like Katic as well, and the leaders on the pitch around.
Katic and Maxi, the fact that they seem to have bonded by arriving at the same time, spending a ton of time outside of work together, clears work.
Absolutely.
They must rely on each other quite a bit for their own sort of bad days at the office, because they've had a couple recently.
Yeah, and then working with like sports psychologists. I don't think, and I might be wrong in saying this, and someone might correct me on this, if Argyle actually have a sports psychologist on the club.
I don't think we have. I don't know if they do go up to Margyle, don't they, the players, and use their facilities. And I think part of their sports science section, they've got sports psychologists and students there. So I don't know if they actually see anybody up at Margyle.
Right, so Mirror Music. If you're actually watching this now, right, I'm available. I've got space for. No, it's serious. They need that. Their players need to offload as well. Whether that be a sort of weekly, I don't know, CBT session or a counsellor session to help them sort of get through all the stuff that they have to handle every day. That might be good for them. I don't know. What was that? I missed the comments.
Sorry,
Any questions on that, guys?
Evening, Sean. Yeah.
It was a good show, actually, because there's lots of stop-start. Well, unless you're playing Cardiff or Wickham, there aren't that many stop-starts in football as there are rugby. It's more of a flowing game, you're right. Whereas, he's bang on. Cricket and rugby, there's lots in between each ball you can visualise. In between each set piece you can visualise, or you can think clearly, or you can... But I think there's still times in a game, certainly if you're playing Wickham or Cardiff, that you can... when the game breaks up, you can bring yourself in and have those sort of small conversations about reminding yourself about what you've talked about, either in meetings or in classrooms or on the pitch.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Andy.
Yes,
I tell you on this slide, what I'd like to ask all of you is experiences of where you've come across this. So if I'm going to go to Emma first again, mental toughness. Forget this from a football side, but in the job that you do, and obviously the situations that you face now, if I'm okay to ask, but have you had some serious issues where you've had someone pass away with what you've been dealing with? But how then do you deal with that and cope with that yourself?
Yeah. So I've been a paramedic for 12 years. So obviously I've seen everything from people being born to people dying, and lots of horrible incidents, as you can imagine. You have to compartmentalize and you have to move on to the next thing. You can't dwell on it. I think that's similar, I guess, with the football, in the fact that once they've done their debrief, I think they just move on to the next game, or they prepare for the next one, because you can't just overanalyze everything. You would literally lose your marbles if you just kept going over it the whole time. So in that way, similar, I guess. I can't think about the patient I had 2 weeks ago because I'm now dealing with something else. So he's always talking about the next, isn't he? Like, we need to get ready for this. We need to bounce back. I know we all hate it when they say, when they've lost, we're going to prepare and bounce back and we need to get the points. But that's what they have to think. They have to go forward and be like, we need to get the points the next time. Otherwise, they'd just give up and they wouldn't do it, would they?
Yeah, but the pressure on their job is to get those points. The pressure on your job is to save people's lives and help people in distress. And, so it's the whole thing about these topics and these presentations that we bring up is where, you can use it to relate. I mean, Carl, obviously with the work that you do as well, I don't think we've ever introduced ourselves fully actually as a panel. But do you want to just sort of give a bit of what you do and then how, these things relate to your job?
Again, yes, similar to Emma. Obviously, I don't save lives, but I see a lot of death in my job as well, which can be difficult. And obviously, in my private life as well, I've lost a child as well. So I've kind of had it from both spectrums. That, you know, obviously losing a baby and then losing people in my job role is not easy. You need tough mental, you know, a mindset for that, because you see a lot of that. You see a lot of, obviously, family members as well struggling and seeing their loved ones die, and being kind of the first person there to give them kind of a shoulder to cry on. But like Emma said, it's, you know, the next person is just around the corner. You know, you deal with one person passing away, and then, you know, your next night shift there can be someone else. So it's mentally tough, but, you know, you're in this job, you kind of expect this to happen, and yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, and not everyone can do kind of you know, our jobs. And, you know, we do get I don't think the government see our jobs as, you know, to be paid the correct way. But yeah, we see a lot, we do a lot, and sometimes you do feel a bit underappreciated.
Yeah, and that's just another tough one, isn't it? I mean, Gavin, you know, from your side, obviously, you know, you're dealing with big deals. I mean, you were telling me, you know, yesterday about, you know, one where your clients are obviously wanting to get the answer on something, and you have to. It's a totally different thing, but in different industries and different jobs that we all do, you all end up experiencing this in some way.
The only thing I can get close to that, and it's not even close, but if we're dealing with a distress company and we're trying to save jobs, and you've got 2, 3, 4 weeks to find a financial solution to keep the doors open and find your ownership, that's quite stressful, because especially when you go and meet the people that are there and you're knowing that they potentially are going to lose their job and can't pay mortgages and have a very different standard of life very quickly, especially on the sort of, if you're looking at hospitality or manufacturing, there are a lot of people there that all live paycheck to paycheck. So, you know, I feel a lot of the pressure, certainly with my sort of outlook on life of being probably too involved and get too concerned with it. But just thinking about the other side with both Carl and Emma, it'd be fantastic to have a medical professional go and speak to the squad and say, you might have conceded from a throw-in, right? Put your hands down your pants and find your bollocks, because I've just gone from a road traffic accident where I've just had to, you know, literally scrape people off the floor and put them in the back of an ambulance, and then I'm off to deliver a baby. Get a grip. And I think, well, it is, isn't it?
I don't know if that would help them, though. Would that really help them?
What, deliver a baby, Mike?
Go from that to that.
Yeah.
To say, I didn't pick up the man properly at the near post, and they got round me and scored a goal. To put that in that perspective for the squad, then I just sit there and think, what am I doing? You know, I'm a pampered footballer. These people are on the front line, saving all our lives. Maybe I should just, you know, adapt quicker and not feel sorry for myself. I'm not saying that the players on
perspective, isn't it, Gav?
By the way, but I just think hearing it from someone of that walk of life, from you two, a medical professional on the front line, I've got absolute respect for you completely. I could never do it.
Yeah,
that would be a really interesting chat, I think.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, if we think about, say, Hull last year at the end of the season, it did feel like life and death.
Yeah, it did.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all perspective, isn't it? Like, sometimes I'm dealing with people that have literally just like cut their thumb, and I'm like, this is not as extreme, you know. So for them, that's the only pressure that they know. Like, they don't know the pressure that I have. So you know, I know Morgan talked a lot, was it last season, where he had like a series of videos where he talked about his mental health and how he struggled with confidence and stuff. And I think if you're that kind of person, yes, you can see a sports psychologist or somebody, but are you ever going to be able to make yourself stronger in that department? Like, you can try these techniques and you can try and do as much as you can, but there are certain type of people that just find pressure easier to deal with, and some of them don't, and that's just a fact of life. So I think when you're building a squad, and that's what Miron talked about again, wasn't it, that he's trying to build a squad of players that want to be here, that are fighting for Argyle. They're not just like getting a paycheck, which some of them, as we know, are, because they might be on loan or they don't really care. They know they're going to be going in the summer, don't they? So they've only got 8 games left with us, so they don't have that fire inside them as much as like say a Joe Edwards or an Adam Randall who cares, and actually it is life or death for them. Whereas the other players are going to move on and do something else in the summer.
I think that's like that in any organisation, though, isn't it? You have a handful of people that you cut them open and the brand names going through them like a stick of rock.
Yeah.
And there are a few people that are there to pick up a paycheck and go home. And if things go wrong, well, I'll just take my paycheck, clock out 5 o'clock, and I'll see you tomorrow, and I won't take it home with me. So I think in all walks of life you have that, and the more people you have in organisations, squads, football teams that have that mentality of one in, all in, and you'll sort of fight them on the beaches type attitude. Certainly in this environment where you're the bottom of the table or you're fighting for promotion, they're the ones that seem to be able to thrive, and the ones that are the flight rather than fight, or will be the ones that will end up getting you relegation, quite frankly. And do we have too many of those? Going back to you, Andy, you see the squad every week. Body language is a big thing.
It's a good mixture, I think, isn't it?
Fighting, not fighting.
Yeah, a lot of them are just thinking, right, this game's gone there. And you see it when that Derby match last Saturday, when that first goal went in, a lot of the heads dropped. And, especially when the second goal went in as well, it just dropped even more. You think, right, that's it, game over. And I think even some fans on the terraces would have said, oh, that's it, game over, until we got a goal back. And then the fans get on side, 12th man picks up. And then it starts to pick up a bit more. And then we score another goal. They think, come on, let's go and win this now. And your euphoria just takes over. And you think, come on, we can do this now. And I guess the players do that as well. We've got this now. And then you can see the silly goal in the last minute.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, Andy, isn't it? That final goal, sort of after the confidence in my gut instinct, which is normally not wrong, it was like, we're going to go on and win this. So that sucker punch at the end, I think, I said this on Sunday's show, I think the 2-week break, I know everybody will laugh at me that doesn't believe, there is still that chance, folks, of survival. There is still that chance. But as tough as it is, but that, I think if we'd have not had this international break, that defeat in the way it happened, the 2 goals down, the comeback to 2-2, losing it in the dying minutes, regardless of what anybody thinks of the subs, we've discussed that, it's not for now, but it's almost like that would have been a proper collapse, I think. So the 2-week break allows them to digest, go back to family, talk about the support systems there. Emma, you'll have your colleague that you're generally with, I'm guessing, if you're on ambulances, you pair up, don't you, and stuff. Yeah. You've got your partner that you can sort of sort of have that emotional connection with, when you've gone through a tough day, and all that sort of stuff. The wife just has to hear me moan when I come back from just my office and, oh, we didn't do this right in this home base store or that range store, and it's like it's nothing in comparison, but it's just a lot of relative stuff there.
If you take your job seriously, it does matter to you, doesn't it? My tagline on my website, because you matter. People matter to me, and I guess that your customers matter to you, Mike. People matter to you, Emma and Carl, and same with you.
It's also talking about the lone players and that, and I hate it because you do see a couple of them where you think, do you even care? But surely they're trying to appeal to other clubs, to their home club, to say, like, I'm playing well. Surely it's worth putting some effort in, even if you know you're not going to be with Argyle next season, but you're trying to impress people that might employ you in the future, or your current club that are going to take you back. Why do you let your head drop and go, oh, I'm not going to be here any longer? There's got to be, again, a psychological element to that, like knowing that you're not either not in the squad or you're not going to be in the squad for the last 8 games, say. But surely you want to come off the bench and do something and prove that you're a good footballer and you should be in the Championship. Because if we go down, who's going to take you after that?
Exactly.
But people like Obafemi just puzzle me so much, because he started off, I think, earlier on in the season, he was quite an impact player. He would come on and do something and change the game.
That Luton game.
And he seems to now be he was out of favour with Miron for a few weeks, and then some people were saying it was his attitude or he was in the bars or whatever. I don't really know when people say this stuff on X, they've seen him in the pub and he's drunk and all this stuff. But there's got to be something going on there, hasn't there? Because he is a Championship player, and he is an attacking player, and we've needed attacking players and we haven't been using him. And then you think, is he just not giving us the attitude that we need? Why would you not play?
It does make you wonder why Burnley let him go in the first place, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
know, why did they let
There's
him
something
go?
going on there.
Has he got
I'm
much?
a big watcher of when no one else is watching from my table eating prawn sandwiches. I'll get it in handy before you do.
I did tell Emma you have your
but
diamond.
you
mate?
get to the ground about 11 o'clock, 11:15. So, you know, over your first latte or prawn sandwich or whatever, but you stay on an hour and a half after the game. It's been really interesting for me to see the progress of Obafemi and his attitude over the last few weeks. When he wasn't playing, obviously they got to do extras after the game. 1 week he was like, "Oh, let's just give up after 20 minutes," and everyone else carried on. And Joe Edwards was doing the sort of the extras. Last couple of games, he's been on the field. He was first out. He did extras. He led the line as they went up and back, and he looked a different man. Now I don't know whether him and Miron or him and Adin have had it, or him and Nance have had a little tete-a-tete over a flat white somewhere, or whether he's thinking it's back end of the season now, my contract's run out, I'm on 25 grand a week, I might need to try and protect some of my income in the future, I want to be up for this. But he looks at the body language of the bit where they're not 17,000 fans aren't screaming at him or not, it looks much, much better, which is why a couple of weeks ago I had him in my team. We went away in Portsmouth and obviously we won.
Did you think as well, like having when we lost TJ and Hardy, like almost like in a like one after the other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That suddenly he was more likely to be picked because obviously we've not got many attacking options, whereas before he was kind of sat on the bench, like, and sometimes not even on the bench. He wasn't even in the squad a few times.
No.
So why would he put the effort in if he knows he's not going to get a game? Whereas then suddenly he's like, oh, I'm going to get minutes.
You flip that on its head though, don't you? Because you say, show me the effort to get in the squad. So it's 6 and 2 threes. But it seems like now he's on it. So I think he'll give us a very good running.
Didn't Miron say a few weeks back?
Elsewhere, or maybe with us in the future. Who knows what the conversations are being had.
Didn't Miron say a few weeks back about he wanted to see players pissed off or disappointed when they're not selected? So it's kind of, well, if he's showing that, then why isn't he not being reselected? Or it kind of double standards in a way, isn't it? Like you want players to be pissed off because they're not playing, but then you can't then blame their attitude. So it's very difficult to kind of slice down the middle of those.
I think Miron as well said a couple of times that he wants players that want to play for Argyle as well, and he said it about, I can't remember, did he say it about Beidou at one point or something, or was it Obafemi?
No. He said it about...
Somebody asked him about a player and he said, I want players.
Yeah, it was the midfielder that we didn't get that said, I want a relegation clause in my contract. And he said,
the defender, wasn't it?
You don't want to be saying, oh, well, if we go down, blah, blah, blah. I'd say the best person who I can think of springs to mind of having an absolutely stunning attitude, whether he's playing or not, who's now at Wrexham, is Callum Burton. A man who, like, unless the one of our own who's now not been named at Sheffield United, Mr. Cooper was sick. He was never getting a game, was he, ever? But if you read all the press and the managers and everything that's been said about him, he's like the best trainer in the club, and he pushed Michael Cooper every single day hard in training with the goalkeeping coach and squad. And it's players that you need in the club, I think, that are just going to be absolutely give it all. Pleggy, just to get your usual plug in, Mike, is another one. So everything that's been said, he's an absolute solid professional. He trains his backside off, day in, day out. Mr. and Mrs. Pleggy, if you are listening and watching as usual, hello, good evening. I'll say it before Mike does.
Have you got your mic?
You'll get a text in about 20 minutes from Mike. But another quality professional that does the stuff when people aren't watching, which I think is what this whole mental resilience thing is about, isn't it?
And Sorinola for a part of the season, wasn't he? Because he was out of favour with Rooney, and then suddenly he's now taking every opportunity, and he's sometimes our best player, the most energy, and he does care. He seems to care. He loves talking to the, going up to the crowd and getting them involved as well. So those kind of players, like having them, like you said, not even in the squad sometimes, but they are part of the whole makeup of the team and
the changing room, or the locker room.
I think Emma, I think Pleggy, we've said it a few times, even before I bumped into his wife, but the Pleggy and Sorinola both have shut up, Gavin. Both have shown that actually biding your time. They weren't even on the bench at times. Biding your time, just doing your job. They're perfect role model example professionals that then stepped in when we needed players to step in, and have been outstanding. And I actually did feel that we missed Pleggy. It does disrupt when you're used to a back four that your Soronos, your Katic, your Maxis, your Pleggy, because you all are working and understanding each other. Andy, on to your next slide then, the sports psychologist role, as Sean also put up in the comments earlier. 100% we need a sports psychologist. Well, maybe they could join the Block 9 and we could all help them get through this circumstance.
Absolutely. We're a positive podcast, aren't we? I've seen a lot of other ones, but we won't mention them. Anyway, the sports psychologist role, you're looking at performance enhancement. Okay, so we're looking at that person developing those mental skills that players need. So that could be anything in between to do with like meditation or positive comments, positive thinking. So you can do this. There's a difference when you hear someone say, "Oh, I can't do this." That's a negative reaction straight away. If you tell a person you can do this or you will do this, they will do it or they can do it. And so you give them that sort of positive attitude in there right away. And then you got your pressure management, right? So you're providing coping mechanisms for high pressure situations. So when that goal doesn't go in, when you miss that penalty, you got to cope with that. How do you cope with that? Well, you get people around you. You get your team around you, sort of looking out for you. You get your captain alongside you, your manager, anything like that. And then we go to recovery support. Good sort of rehabilitation during the injury. So, Joe Edwards is a good example of this, right? So he's been out injured for quite a while now, just coming back into it. So he's going to need that mental rehabilitation as well, because he's probably thinking, going to go out to that pitch. I've just had a major injury, put me on the sidelines for 2-3 months. If that happens again, I'm going to be out again for the rest of the season. I want to play. I want to perform for these people. I want to make people proud of me and happy that I'm playing for Plymouth Argyle Football Club. So Joe's probably thinking he needs to get that sort of mental rehabilitation as well. That sort of weighs up again. We talked about performance and mental agility as well. So
frustrating him, Andy, because he's at the end of his career pretty much. Sorry, Joe. But so he needs to get as much game time as he can possibly before he has to hang up his boots and become part of the management team, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
He's got a great engine in him and he wants to play. You can see it when it came on. I think it was the game before Derby. Was it? I can't remember who it was now we played, but he came on. He was giving it all that to the crowd and wanting to G the crowd up. And you need that from people like Joe Edwards. So he wants to play for the club. He's got that mental sort of prowess, if you like, to want to go and perform and play. And then you got that confidence building, that sort of self-belief that you can do it. When you say to yourself you can do it, you will do it. And then self-image, you're sort of putting yourself out there and your image as a footballer. If I scored that winning goal against Hull, everyone's going to think I'm a hero. And everyone thought he was a hero. He was brilliant. And Callum Wright, the ball across, everyone thought that ball was the mutt's nuts, even though it was just a straight. And so the confidence building, and it's a team thing again. If you're building each other up with confidence, even before the game, you see them now going back to the huddle. They all go to the huddle before the start of the game, and they're all sort of talking to each other in there and geeing each other up and giving it all that. That is the sort of confidence team building that you need and support that you need.
I think, Andy, just on that one, actually, just to bring up something that sort of I've always done, over my time in the role that I do at the range with the teams that I've had, the people that I've had working for me, under me, or, work with me, is you've got to allow people to go off and do something, make their own decisions on things, go away, don't always hold someone's hand, the confidence building side, it's about, look, you go away and look at that, come back, tell me what you think, I'll take you through it, and you know what, if I'll give you the shout and let's go and make the decision, and let's see what happens. And, you hope to get 9 out of 10 of all of those right. But the brilliantness or the excitement, from, say, bringing in a product, in my case back in the day, and then having, one of your assistants doing that with you and going, I really want to go with that. You believing in them doing that, and then seeing the sales, obviously working retail off the back of that, is great. You've got to, and I've always said to people, always let go and make sure you have people around you that you can give responsibility to. And it's the same in the team, isn't it? In terms of, you've got to keep saying to your strikers, look, you're going to go out there and score today. You're going to go out there and do this today. You've got to pass to them and believe, so they know that you believe in them, to pass the ball, to try and go on and score.
Yeah, well, a good example of this is probably, well, I'll give you two examples of this, right? So Alex Ferguson, probably one of the best managers this country's ever seen. And I'm not a Man United fan by any stretch of the imagination, but Ray Clark will love this. And he's a Man United fan. Alex Ferguson, he gave the hairdresser treatment, right, to his players. He gave them at both barrels if they didn't play well. But then he'd go and put the arm on his shoulder and say, come on, right, you had a bad game today. Let's do it this way. Let's try it this way next time. And he'll get alongside that player and G that player up. Another one is Nance, Kevin Nansgill, Mr. Argyle, fantastic ambassador to the club. He's passionate. His blood runs green if you cut him. He'll go up to fist pump with the fans at the end of the game as well, because the players that he's been working with done him proud. We saw that at Port Vale. We saw that against Hull. We've seen it so many times. Nance going up and giving it that, and at Brentford that time when the Brownie slipped on his backside, really. He's giving it all that, and that's what you sort of need. You need people like that around you with that positive attitude. But I can also give you a sort of bit of a roasting if you get it wrong. And that's, accountability in a way, isn't it? Because you want to succeed. You want to get it right on the day. And if you don't get it right, then you let a lot of people down. And so, yeah.
Do you think, Andy, with Miron that, obviously we don't see what goes on behind closed doors, but do you think that maybe he's too nice? It would be interesting to see a clip of him, sort of not Neil Warnock-esque, because that isn't him, in the dressing room that time, but like it just sort of how he's then dealing with that. Is he just always calm? Is he always composed?
No. If you look at some of the Circle Brew stuff, as I did, there's the 23-24 season when they go from 9 bottom up to the 22-23 season, he starts bottom, he finishes 7th. There's a couple of dressing room stats there where the fist is clenched and he is handing it out in a big way.
Good.
Just because he comes across as polished in the media, that doesn't mean that he hasn't got a small hairdryer tucked in his hand luggage, because I would say he's probably given as much as he needs to. And I think he's probably done it, half-time at Burnley. I can't imagine him sitting there monotone going, we're 5-0 down, now you need to show me proof of life. I imagine it was a little bit more animated than that.
Yeah. I've certainly seen him animated in some of the clips on Argyle TV and stuff. I've seen him animated, so I think there's a lot of passion there, which is good. We need passion in football. Whether you're a fan or whether you're a player, you need passion. You need to have that determination.
But you can go the other way, though, can't you? You can't be...
It can go the other way, yeah.
Too animated and lose it. And I think what he said in press conferences in the past is, I don't get too high and I don't get too low, because if I get the hairdryer out every time we go one down, it's kind of white noise after 3 games. You've got to choose your time to pull that club out your golf bag and give it a swing. There's no point doing it every time because it just doesn't become effective.
Yeah, and when Emma said in chat before we went live tonight about Wayne Rooney kicking the plastic bottle into the crowd, he was frustrated. He just got sent off, I think, and he just kicked the bottle into the crowd.
There's nothing wrong with showing passion.
There's nothing wrong with showing passion, but at least with Rooney, what he did there, he actually apologised to the person, and even though he got banned, touchline ban.
Evening Voodoo.
Voodoo wins the internet again.
Voodoo, great show, Voodoo as well. Jan Songa doesn't need motivation. He's one of those players.
But to be fair, when you're that
any
good,
more questions?
You don't need to be. You don't need any kind of motivation, do you? When you're Jan Songa, you don't need to be motivated.
He was
okay.
I'm going to move along. It is doing something. So I got some case studies about champions here, and you're probably going to disagree with us with that all. Cristiano Ronaldo, what a player he is. Uses visualization.
Best footballer
ever. We talked about mental toughness earlier on. When he's getting slated on the terraces, or when he's got people at his leg, kicking him in the back of the leg, he just that pressure that comes to him, he just transforms into a positive attitude, and he just wants to go and prove people wrong all the time. So he transformed his criticism into motivation. So if anyone says, "Oh, you had a poor game," whatever, he says, "Oh, well, stuff you, mate. I had a good game. I think I had a good game." Lionel Messi.
Andy. It is
Yeah.
the thing that always sticks out in my mind with Cristiano Ronaldo is the penalty shootout with Portugal. I can't remember if it was the UEFA's or the World Cup, and one of the guys is hiding away, not wanting to take a penalty, and he's like, "Come down here. If you miss, you've had a go, but don't hide up there. Don't need that from you." And he scores the winner in the shootout. That for me is absolute. A, it's leadership, it's great leadership, but B, it's mental strength to tell a colleague who's a bit, again, fight or flight, a flighter, come down, stand shoulder to shoulder with me. If you miss, I don't care. No one will care, but you've got this ability to put this penalty away, and obviously did it.
And he's got that great attitude as well, isn't he? With not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well, with youngsters and all that, giving them shirts and stuff and posing for selfies and all that. He is iconic in the game, as is Lionel Messi. Messi himself, he overcame that growth hormone deficiency, but developing resilience, in the early challenges of his life, he maintains a real humility, and I mean real humility when he's in the sort of spotlight, if you like. He's famed all over the place. He's an amazing footballer, as we all know.
They've both got phenomenal work ethic as well. Talking about what sort of Miriam wants out of a player. They're both fighters, and they'll both do extras, and they'll both be continually training. They'll be rigid on their diet. They're both in their autumn of their career, but they're probably as fit now as they've ever been.
Yeah. And I think this is where the two on the left versus Rashford on the right do have some striking differences, but also, yes, they are still, mental champions, but the work ethic, the applying that is possibly not there as Ronaldo and Messi are. But go on, Andy, on Rashford.
Do you know what? Rashford brings something different, doesn't he? He channels all that sort of pressure that he gets from media into activism, and I've sort of looked up earlier on the stuff he's been involved with to do with like kids. Poverty tasks and all that sort for children in poverty and homeless. And he throws all that sort of pressure that he gets into, and he's an ambassador. Was it OBE or something he got for that?
Yeah, OBE,
for that public service and stuff.
Lunches.
He's got grace. Yeah, he handles it really well.
I think during lockdown, didn't he single-handedly shame the Tory government into providing Meals on Wheels or equivalent of that for kids who couldn't get to school in lockdown and getting the meals delivered when they were trying to cut back.
Yeah, it was a child food poverty, wasn't it? I forget what it was now.
I remember it well because
I think it wasn't it the school lunch dinners or something?
Free school dinners.
Was it free school dinners? Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
But it's like you say, he used his fame, if you like, because he's a top player. But he channeled that into a real humility about people who are underprivileged and homeless. And again, what an ambassador for the sport.
Can I ask you a question on Marcus?
Sure,
so if he's not performing on the pitch, right, and he's got lots of pressure from the Man United fan base about not performing on the pitch, he can still put his head over the parapet and fight for child poverty and stuff he believes in. Yeah. Would you not say that an argument would be that he's actually got more mental strength than the other two on this call? Because he if work's not going well, it's easy to just shrink away into and become a hermit and not stick your head over the parapet. But actually, he's decided that I don't care about any of that. I'm still going to go forward with a cause that I know I can help with through my own social profile. And make a difference. Would you say that's stronger mentally, or would you say that's
100%? He is a true professional footballer. You look on the other side of that. You look at I don't want to mention his name really, but George Best, right? He was probably one of the best footballers in the world. But he had a problem with alcohol, sadly, because of the pressure. He had to turn to that. Whereas Rashford has channeled all his negativity into doing stuff for other people. And that's really selfless. That is emotional strength to do that, because you've got 70,000 people at Old Trafford, giving you stick. It's going to affect you in some way, but it's like he says, well, c'est la vie. I'm playing football for a privilege. I'm being paid lots of money to play football. All right, I may not get it right all the time, but I'm going to channel that elsewhere. I'm going to put that into something positive, which is going to sort of raise his profile even more. I think even more so than Ronaldo or Messi, because that is mental strength. Yeah.
Voodoo with a comment of sledging opposition is useful too. Example, Cardiff pushing Sissoko's buttons to get him sent off. Yep.
It's true. That is true though, because even Adam Randall, now getting his ban, he's let the referees' decisions or Lino's decisions or whatever get to him. That is part of mental strength as well, isn't it? The fans get on your back, other players get in your face. The Lino gives a decision that you're not happy with, and you can either take it and just deal with it, or you react to it. And then we've lost Randall for 3 matches. So
And Emma, the bigger part of that that happened is, in the nicest way, love him to bits, but he let the team down by getting himself in that situation. Because he's generally always picked. He definitely needed a break, but not this way. But that he will learn from that. That all you can do is just learn from that mistake going forward. He's still a young professional. Learn from that mistake, but it's just you got to go and just shove yourself in a room and just if you have to just scream, but not do it to the ref. You can't change the game. The result's done. You have to just move on. But like Voodoo's point, also yourself, you have to go out there and sort of have a mental battle with the opposition, and where there's weaknesses in their squad, you've got to go in and take advantage of that. Why not? Because they'll do it back to you if you don't do it to them.
It just shows that passion, doesn't it? He's got that passion. He showed that passion on the pitch, right? And after the match, he's given the Lino, whoever, a mouthful rustic, but that's passion. But it's backfiring him because now he's let his colleagues down, his teammates down. He's going to have to sort of live with that for a little while.
The best way of proving to someone, if they're dragging you down, like Voodoo said, being sledged by opposition, is to then turn around and go and score a goal, or
that's what your Ronaldos and Messis will do.
Yeah, this is it. So Ronaldo, even someone like Jude Bellingham, who everyone thinks is arrogant, they're like, oh god, he's such an idiot, or a dick, he thinks he's amazing. It's not. He's projecting I know that I'm good. I'm going to score this goal. I'm going to go and get this free kick, whatever it is. And that's part of, when they do their psychological training, like you said, the visualization, I am the best in the world. And then if you visualize it, then you will become that. And that's, Ronaldo, Messi, etc.
It's a good arrogance to have, isn't it?
I tell you, who did that for us this year was Andre Gray. Watford.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't liked at Watford. He scored 2 goals, and his second goal, he just went...
Yeah.
And that's all he had to do, and they were throwing everything at him on the pitch. He mentioned that actually in the Fozcast thing, and said that he wasn't liked, and the first thing he did was run over and tell him to shut up. But the second goal he took over his shoulder was class.
Yeah.
Just shame he's got the...
Oh, hang on.
Reminds me of David
ladies first.
Andy,
ladies first.
Sorry, Emma.
No, I just mean like you said, channel that energy into frustration, whatever it is, into I'm gonna do my best on the pitch, and it doesn't matter if the opposition get in your face or the liner gives an offside that wasn't an offside. You're gonna eventually turn that into positive, aren't you? You're gonna get that goal. You're gonna get, if your head goes down, if your shoulders go down, and you just everyone's against me. And that's where it is arrogance to think that you're the best on the pitch. But actually, if you are a bit arrogant and you are quite confident, and you can, give it all of that, give it mouth, shout at other people, give them stick. Maybe, just maybe, that's better than shoulders down, give up, don't care.
The old motto, isn't it? Play the whistle. And if you played the whistle there and listened to the line and whatever, then it's a different story, isn't it? I was going to say about David Beckham, and when Beckham got sent off, I think it was Ronaldo that got him sent off.
World Cup.
And he was doing right stick after that for many, many months, wasn't he? And then he came back stronger, and it just goes to show it does, the effects it does have from on the pitch and off the pitch. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah, just as you go to the next slide, Andy, I just want to say, thank you everybody that's joined us tonight, and also in the comments as well. Look, appreciate you all joining us on this show. We know it's a late one, but like we said, a totally different approach. But also, please subscribe, and reshare if you're on your platform X, and also obviously YouTube. So we'd appreciate that a lot. Obviously, as we grow, what we want to do, we want to expose the awareness of our show, and also, you know, we don't know who does and doesn't watch, but you know, as we're talking about footballers, you know, and the mental toughness in games, if there are any watching, you know, that at any sort of level, professional level, that have gone through this experience, and get in touch with us, because the one thing that we can always then do is do a follow-up session. You know, it'd be great to hear whatever professional leagues you've been in, how you've come through situations, you know, and dealt with that. So, you know, just wanted to put that out there. Andy, yeah, carry on, mate. Injuries and mental health.
Is that Brendan Galloway?
That is Galloway. That is Galloway on. He seems to have been on that bench for quite a while. So we're looking at the first stages of this, the initial injuries. So when you're on that pitch and all of a sudden you're Joe Edwards and you've just, I don't know, did a cruciate, whatever, you got that shock of denial, and that's immediate. So you're in distress. You need to get off the pitch. The anxiety that comes with that is vast, I would imagine, because you don't know what sort of damage has been done until you see your physio or whoever. The uncertainty of that will probably lead to even more distress, because again, you don't know what you're dealing with. Is it just sprained my ankle, or I've done me a cruciate, whatever? And then you go to your sort of treatment period, where you're looking at this is a time where often the player will start to get low. Depression might sort of come through, and there during that rehabilitation, he wants to play football. He's seeing all his mates going out scoring worldies and doing well, and he's not in the team. So it can be quite isolating. He can be in a place where, you know, he's not training with his teammates. He's not seeing his teammates as much, maybe. You're going to get one or two that kind of come to the game as well and sort of be there to gee the rest of the team up. And you've got some good pros there. I think Joe Edwards is one of those. So that isolation will affect the mood drastically, and you start to identity question yourself, you know, about these force breaks and stuff. So, and then you get this in section 3 that you've got this return to training. So we touched about it. We talked about it earlier on, about that sort of that possibility of re-injury again. You know, how many players, you know, Brendan Galloway, for instance, coming back onto the pitch and then injured again. Yeah. And it seems to be ongoing for him all the time, and I feel for him because he's a great player and he brings so much to the team. So he's got to build up confidence again, and this is where you need your players around you. This is where you need people with a positive mindset around you to say, come on, you've got this, you can do this. Those mental barriers will be overcome with help, but it will. They do often exceed those physical ones as well. So you've got to feel right as well. And if you're not feeling right, there's a little twinge, then you think, oh no, I can't go on because I've got to, you know, do me hammy again or something. Then you're going to struggle, aren't you? And then your competitive return. So performance anxiety identifies post-injury. Extra mental support becomes crucial. Again, teammates, sports psychologists are always helpful there. And successful returns require psychological preparation. So that could be go to a counsellor, that could be booking a couple of sessions with a counsellor or a sports therapist to get you back on track again.
Just take Joe Edwards there. I saw him bouncing around on the 72nd minute or whatever it was on Saturday, waiting to come on that triple substitution. In his head, he must be thinking, this is Hull all over here, I'm going to get the winner. When he comes on, and I think probably by his own admission, he was a yard or two behind the pace. Yeah. Mentally, what does that do for him after the game, Andy? When he's like, well, I'm expecting myself to come on and turn it on straight away from being out for, 5 months? October, December, January, February. So 4.5, 5 months back on the pitch. You're never going to be great, are you? You're going to take match sharpness and build your stamina up and all that type of jazz. When you finish the game and you know in yourself you haven't played to your full potential, how does that affect you mentally?
Yeah, I mean, it could affect him in different ways, mate. It could say, right, I felt a bit knackered after that. I need to work a little bit harder, or I need to sort of slack off a little bit and not be as intense. So depend on how the player feels himself, really. If he's
also depends what Miron asked him to do when he went on. If it was to consolidate what's going on, like I don't expect you to score the winner, but I just want us to be a bit more solid and get it down and play it, or whatever the instructions were. Yeah. And if he's done that, then he might feel like, okay, that was successful. He knows he was going to get 2 weeks off after that match because everybody's got those 2 weeks off. So maybe it was literally just getting some minutes in the legs and trying not to concede a goal and, yeah, he probably did feel like he was off the pace a little bit, but the only way to get him back to match fitness is to put him on and get him some minutes.
Yeah.
How else are you going to get him back to scratch,
Yeah.
you know?
It might have been just the fact that he had to come back in there just to be that leader, because when he came on, I don't know if you noticed, he went to the crowd, he's giving it all this, come on, let's get going again. And to have that leadership on the pitch, because I don't think we have too many leaders on the pitch. I think Katic is a good leader. But then there's no one else. And so
I think Poulsen is when Poulsen plays, but he's not necessarily on at the same time. I tell you, Andy, what I was going to add to what Gavin and Emma just said is take Tajani as another example, but also when you've got a thin squad, like we know we're thin on the ground up front with strikers, and you've had a striker that's had a hamstring, gone through the surgery, months and months out. And then you're in a dogfight. You're in this fight for survival. So the pressure of sort of knowing that your team need a striker up front, the pressure from the fans, because as we alluded to earlier, I'm sure he would be aware that some were questioning what he can really bring and what he has brought to the table, and he hasn't had a chance to show that. The pressure of knowing then when you get the opportunity, you need to try and perform, but you are going to be very off the pace. But fans are suddenly. Certain fans are suddenly expecting him to just get on there and be at your best, but you just said, Emma and Gav, about Joe Edwards. He wasn't ever. You knew he was going to be a little bit off the pace. So when you are in this survival fight with a very thin squad as it is, the pressure then magnifies on all these players in these situations, because you don't have two or three decent players that can come in and take your spot, rely on as a club to take your spot. So there's all of that added pressure, and as we've seen, Tajani then goes and gets injured again and is out for a few more months.
Yeah, and then we got that game with Bundu, who's injured today. So.
Well, is it an injury? We don't know how bad.
He did come off injured, because there's no way he would have been subbed in the 40th minute if he just scored and had a good game. That seems like he picked up a knock to me.
Yeah. Evening, Graham. Yeah, no, we did. We noted about Bundu scoring at the start of the news segment. So good to see you, though.
Let's hope it's a knock and he doesn't playing anymore and he's come straight home and has a rest.
Ideally,
because he's going to need a rest. He's played quite a few games recently. Sorry, Emma.
Can we talk about Hardy coming back as well, because literally a few weeks ago they were saying he could hardly move, literally hardly walk, hardly do anything, and they were like, he might even be out for the rest of the season. And then Miron and Hardy have both said that he's basically putting his body on the line, so he's come back before he's really fit. He had something on his back after the Derby match, like a pulse.
It was
or something.
He was trying to work on his abs, Emma. You know those devices you can get to work on your abs? I think Hardy's the bigger. It's a really good point, Emma. Hardy is the bigger example, because the expectation of when he's gone out or when he came back recently and he scored those goals and then got injured again, the pressure on him to then come back, because everybody's relying on him to score those goals, is even bigger.
Miron's put him on a pedestal, and he might as well have been Messi at that presser when he was saying, we're all right now because he's back. But also, if you look at what he's played with in recent times, last season, when was it Rotherham at home, when both him and Bundu both got crocked in the same game?
Yes.
One after the other.
He was out for some time and he played with stitches. He's played with stitches in his head, the famous green bandage. He played with stitches in his knee this year when he shouldn't have come back at Christmas to try and save Wayne's job. Slid on his knees and burst the stitches open, I think, when he came back a little bit early because he scored. And then he's had this back injury, and he's from not being able to walk to scoring at home park within 3 weeks of having a trapped nerve.
Massive pressure.
Talking about mental resilience, he's probably the walking example of it, or hobbling example.
He basically a little bit of appreciation. Game, didn't he? He won us the game at Pompey because he had an assist and a goal, and then he came off and he had this thing on his back again, and they basically said he wasn't fit. He came back, he wasn't fit. He's got an assist and a goal, and he must have been in agony probably by the end of it. But that's just like that other mental block of he knows he cares about the club. He's putting his actual body on the line. He could ruin his career if he actually has a long-term injury and he has to be operated on his back or something. And he's still coming back and banging goals. And okay, he he was pretty good against Derby the other day, but I think he probably was knackered by the end of it. But you know, they're playing him in that kind of number 10 role now. Like, he's running up and down the pitch. He's honestly, like, compared to how he was start of the season, when people were saying, oh, he's not scored for, months and he's off it. We haven't got any other strikers. That's the only reason he's getting a game. And now he's like, literally, we are begging him to come back on the pitch. Like, we don't have any other options.
Yeah.
And for him to put his body, like, looking at that fear of coming back after an injury, well, he's been playing with an injury for weeks now.
Well, look at that moment, Emma, in the second half where it sort of said to me, like, he ran from up front. He charged all the way back into the defence when we got caught on the counter and disrupted the player and the ball went out, I think. But he absolutely went like the clappers to get down to him. And, you think that's not his job to be back there defending. But, if you want that clear example of fighting for your team to try and get back into the game and get the result.
That's pro you want in your team, isn't it? You want that dedication, you want that running back, but it's going to, we talked about earlier on about the sort of physical and mental strain that's going to put on you. Physically, that could damage him a lot more.
It does make you think, though, when Hardy's 100% fit, because he's always carrying something, how good he can be. Because even, like Gav said, with his stitches in his head, and the season before last, when he was literally our only striker and he played in week out, because we had no other options. He's never really...
Ryan Hardy's our Rocky Balboa.
Rambo.
Hit the one in the middle.
Okay.
Well, what have you got next for us, Andy?
Okay. So we're looking at, we talked earlier on about social media and the impact it has on players, right? So when you're on social media, you've got constant exposure 24/7. And everything you do, everything you say as a player in your press conference, whatever, gets scrutinized and criticized and analyzed, right? And so your private life suddenly is out there, as Mrs. or Mr. Plegaswelo is going to find out soon with Mike. Isn't that right, Mike? So it's constantly out there. Everything you do or say is in there. And more so if you're a high-profile player, like we talked about Ronaldo, we talked about Messi, Rashford. So that's going to be even more heightened if you're in that public eye. Then you get that abuse escalation. Now, X is rife for it. Knee-jerk reactions against the team. Cyberbullying. When you hear a player being really slated for a bad performance, he's a human being, for goodness sake. He's not Superman. Threats beyond threats that he gets, break your legs up, you break your leg, whatever. Or you get those comments come out there, and they're just poison. And then that sort of also makes its way to your family life, because your missus might read it or your kids might read it, and all of a sudden, and I'm going to hark back to it. I'm going to talk about Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're here.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh no!
There's one way to end the presentation.
I must admit, his signal, I could see his screen was looking a bit dodgy. He'll be back soon, folks. So while we wait for him to come in, we'll just play some lift music. Just carrying on from his point. I think hang on, there we go. Look, while I was stalling tactics, let's get him back in. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome back Andrew Laidlaw?
Thank you. I don't know what happened there, guys. It was a bit of a loose connection of mine, I think. I was going to say, I was going to bring in sort of Ian Foster, right? And the stick that Ian Foster got as a manager, right? And I'm saying this for a reason, okay? Because it's not just Ian Foster that gets that grief and stuff from the fans, but his son as well. He was getting sort of slated for being his son, for goodness sake. It's not the boy's fault. It's not Ian Foster's fault. It was just one of those things that he couldn't sort of get the best out of our players. He even got 2 away wins, but yeah, fair enough. And so the consequences of that, the mental consequences are anxiety and depression, and that increases rapidly. Self-doubt. Was I really that crap? Was I really that bad? Don't think I had a bad game. But you're hearing it from someone saying you're absolutely useless or rubbish, and those words, useless, rubbish, will sort of Those are the sort of words that you
What was
don't
it?
hear as a
Ian
footballer.
Foster, your football is shit, was the chant on our own park. That's gonna make your family proud, isn't it, when they're sitting in the players' lounge?
That's a tough one.
Who's the player? We had a player not long ago, and they said, "Oh, used to be shit, but now he's all right," or something like that. Who was that?
Don't know.
Scott something.
Sinclair?
No, I forget that.
No,
No, it was a defender.
Adam Forshaw.
It was a defender who
Scott Watton.
he kept on getting stick from the Argyle fans. He used to be shit, but now he's okay. So, but that's sort of consequence. You're going to get sort of all sorts going through your mind. Sleep disturbance and stuff like that, and performance problems going on there as well. So then you have to sort of get in that there's protective strategies, right? So
that's what I said, Voodoo.
Turn your phone off.
I said Watton, Voodoo.
I know. I'm glad one of us on the pod's got some.
Scott Wood, thanks, Voodoo. Yeah, cheers, mate.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name for a minute. He went off somewhere else, didn't he? He played in America or something.
Thanks, Emma.
But yeah, Scott Wood. But he was, and I think they said it this season as well in one of the games. But anyway, that's going to have an effect on the player if you say that to them.
There's a few of our players that don't have social media at all. I don't think. Like there's a few that don't post. I don't know if they look like.
Well, they might have burner accounts, though, Emma.
Yeah, they might actually.
There might be Voodoo. You never know. Voodoo might be.
Yeah.
I think JB's behind Voodoo.
Jan Songo in disguise.
It could be Jan Songo. He picks up Jan Songo enough. It must be him. Voodoo,
yeah, it's got to be.
Come out of the mask. Just tell us you're Jan.
Voodoo, you are Jan Songo. I'll claim my £5. But digital detox. Turn your phone off at night. Don't engage with it, because if you start to engage with the keyboard warriors or your Millers of this group and all that sort of stuff, then
Graham showing his age. Sorry, Graham.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, chants were brutal back in the day, absolutely, and they still are now to a certain extent. And that sort of comes through not just the personal level, but on a racial level. If you're black, for instance, and you're going to get a certain degree of people who don't like you because you're black. Sadly, in this day and age, and so you have to sort of look for sort of ways to sort of overcome that. So professional social media management helps.
Andy, can I ask you a question? So
yeah, please do.
Well, I think in all walks of life, and the only thing I can relate it to is restaurant kitchens. So that's kind of world I grew up. The thuggery and ultimate thuggery that went on between a head chef and a commis chef if he got something wrong was either physical or mental, right? But it was horrific. And I've seen young lads been beaten with steels and thrown in walk-in freezers for an hour and come out, right, you learned your lesson, all that good stuff. Back in the good old days of the 90s when, 100 hours a week was normal and you bragged about it. If you look at the people back then, I think that's what Graham's kind of saying with football. Society's changed massively, hasn't it? And a lot of people are a lot softer. And looking at a podcast of the week from the Rest is Rugby, I think it was Graham Henry said, no, it wasn't Gatlin, sorry, was saying that the teams he coached in the 2000s got won Grand Slams, you could be far more brutal on their performance than you can now, because the young kids that are coming through are a little bit softer and it's gone too far the other way and we're too soft on people. Graham's point, I think, is quite reasonable, isn't it? And the fact that actually, I know you joke all the time, but utter woke nonsense from a meme, but can you be too soft? Does the hairdryer come out? Are they going to have that mental resilience, or are we now going to have to pussyfoot around everybody forever?
You're just a human being in the end, Gav, aren't you? I mean, you look at back in the school days. You were bullied if you were weak, or you were a bully who beat you. It's the same today. Everyone's got a different sort of wired. Everyone's wired differently. So,
well, that's actually Andy. Let's take it as a modern one. I won't mention the account, but obviously you posted introducing yourself to Emma. Obviously we mentioned that Emma was going to come on. I had a little bit of a play with it initially with the earlier post in the week, but and someone then sort of wants to take a little. Oh, so do we start announcing that we're acknowledging that we're following people? Yeah. But it's everything's context. And I remember when I took. My son wanted to go up and see the Liverpool plane come down because he's massive into aviation. Yeah. Obviously, I did a tweet, and in fairness, that's that said person as well. Then after I gave context to it, because no, I'm not a sad Argyle fan that goes up just to watch a Liverpool plane come in. Absolutely hate Liverpool.
Ben as a decoy, you did.
Yeah, but it but it's once you give context, it's
Or
like, yeah,
cramp.
you know, you go off and do these things. So it's keyboard warriors, whether or not they'll say it to your face, some will, some don't care, but you know, a lot of them are just it's just that keyboard warrior, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they got nothing better to do, and these are the probably people who were bullies at school or were bullied at school. So they're trying to take it out on someone else for showing a bit of courtesy.
Yeah, and the detox point, I think, is so relatable recently, in the sense of that, you know, sort of we earlier went on and discussed, you know, sort of the mental, you know, sort of how we all handle things in our jobs, and those that have just joined us, you know, Graham, who's a regular that comes and watches, and you know, sort of Graham earlier, we were talking about how, you know, Emma's role as a paramedic, you know, and Carl, who also cares for people, you know, in the NHS, and you know, sort of the difference there in having to handle and, you know, sort of deal with things mentally is probably the toughest of all sort of jobs to do that, you know, with the circumstances. But you have to certainly, and I did after the Derby game, you know, get home, you are frustrated, and yes, does my wife and my two kids, I got an 8 and 11-year-old, I got it right this time, Emma, you know, do they sort of, they end up having to pit up with a bit of a grumpy dad, because you are frustrated, because you care for your team, you care for the fact that, you know, we didn't get the win, we lost it in the last minute, you know, the social scenes are going to go into absolute meltdown. So the best way to deal with it mentally is just to say, I'm not going to go on there tonight.
Just switch off, like we did on that weekend. We muted the group chat.
We all did. I think
Yeah.
none of us were on social media after the Derby game.
Why do you think I'm called the Grumpy Loyal?
Well, I was just going to say, I was
Because
going to
get
lead up to
grumpy
it at
if
the
we
end,
lose.
but the irony of having a counsellor who's called the Grumpy Loyal.
One of the worst social media parts recently was obviously when Morgan left, I think. And it still is now. Like, he's getting an awful lot of stick still from like our fans. You know, if Borough fans happen to say, oh, you know, Whittaker's rubbish or whatever, then all of our fans, well, not all of our fans, but some will pile on and be like, oh, we told you he was rubbish. And if he does read everything, and I think he deactivated for a while, didn't he, on social media? But someone that literally we were begging to come back to the club a couple of seasons ago, like, we were so upset when he went back to Swansea. We wanted him to come when he signed for us. I remember everyone going absolutely mental, like him and Barley, like within the same day, I think it was, wasn't it? And then for everyone to turn on him and just be like, oh, he's rubbish, he doesn't care about us, he's lazy, and I get it, like, he wasn't performing well, and you know, there was something going on there, obviously, between him and Miron, and whatever happened with him leaving, you know, you've got people who know what happened, and there's people who are speculating. But I just think it's so sad now that, like, most or the majority of our fan base are now saying they like literally hate him and they never want to see him again. And like, after everything he contributed to us, and you know, even the first half of the season that got us promoted, like his goals and his contributions, and they don't slate Azaz like that, who obviously left. It wasn't his fault that he left us, but it's like, if he was reading that and his girlfriend and any of his family are reading like half of what was said about him, you know, that could really affect him. A player that we know is really not very resilient when it comes to his mental health, and he needs a lot of confidence. And then you've got all of this going on.
It's an interesting one, Emma, isn't it?
A lot of it, but I think, you know, when he went to the press and he did a whole like interview.
Yeah, he did that interview on Sky. Yeah,
I feel like he did that because he'd read a lot of what was going on, and he didn't want people to think that that's what had happened. But you know, he didn't have to justify it to me. I wasn't, you know, I was never going to be one of those people. But it absolutely must have destroyed him. And like, if he ever tried to come back here, I feel like he just wouldn't, because he just got slated so much.
Yeah, I think it's you know, it's a really good point to raise, Emma. This is the whole roller coaster of being a footballer. You know, it's, some people don't agree with the thumping your chest with the badge and all that sort of stuff, and because 1 minute, you know, you're there at the club that loves you, the next minute then you're gone. And I think that's just the world of it is, you know, sort of, if you're a player and things aren't going right, or you get offered a load more money elsewhere. I mean, you are talking the difference between 10 grand and 20, 25 grand, you know, a week, if not a bit more. And You know, so, and like Carl just put in our private chat, you know, the sort of off the pitch stuff that, yeah, hang on, let me bring this comment up from Graham. For those listening on the podcast after, I will get this one up, but Graham just put, living in Middlesbrough would mess anyone up.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
Absolutely, but that's just the nature, and I think that's where, as a professional, you know, you go into it. Miron's speech, as Gavin alluded to earlier at the start when he joined, that, you know, that's what it's all about, isn't it? If there was clearly something going on, because we did see a shift change, you know, after he went. Obviously, Gibson went as well. Everybody thought, oh my God, we're going to fall apart, and then we signed two of the best defenders we've probably seen in a long time. So. It is just the funny old world of the beautiful game. It's difficult
with Morgs, isn't it? Because there was history there with Swansea. He refused to play for Swansea, so I kind of get both sides. I'm sure there was a part of him where he kind of wanted to retract himself from that game on that evening. I mean, Mužlić could have probably handled it a bit better in the press, but
from what I heard from people in the club at reasonably senior level, that it was all arranged that he was going to sit on the bench. And it was all agreed, and we'll say you've got a slight knock and blah blah blah, and then his agent says, no, don't do that, just don't turn up. So it went from, right, you'll sit on the bench, put your kit on, go through the motions, you won't get on the pitch, but we need, you know, we'll sell you to, it was one of two clubs I think at that time, to, no, I won't bother turning up till 20 minutes before kickoff. I think that's why everyone was upset, and Joe Edwards' reaction in the Sky sofa said it all to me. It was like, but yeah, you move on, don't you? Yeah, no one makes.
The trouble is, Gavs, is that we're all fans. We've all got opinions, haven't we? And I'll put my hand up, and I was sort of slating them as well, because I think, oh, Judas and all that. So you make those comments because you're disappointed, whatever. And so you're all got an opinion.
It's probably better as a fan base just to not say anything. Just like he should not be named, and you know, good luck where you're going, and we all move on, and let's worry about our own.
Yeah, it's a shame. It is a shame, but and that's part and parcel of not just football, but everyday life. Everyone's got an opinion about someone or something, haven't they?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to move on because we are long into this life.
Don't worry, folks. Just to add, there's only another 25 slides
on fans. So, in conclusion, it's a responsibility of the player to prioritise their mental fitness, get regular sort of psychological training. And that should match out with physical workouts and self-awareness. And that becomes their greatest tool, as we've sort of talked about. Club investment. Teams should expand the mental health resources. Full-time sports psychologists, which Argyle haven't got. I'm available. Haven't got. So to become essential staff. And it is essential staff because, you know, people need to talk. I get people coming to me in my job, you know, to talk to me and to be heard. And if you're being heard by someone, it helps half the battle. And then the sort of industry evolution, football culture must destigmatize mental health. Media should report responsibly on psychological issues, give it education across all levels, creating lasting changes. So any questions on that, guys, as we finish the player side of it? We're going to go on to the fan section shortly.
Yeah, so this is where we've got another 25 slides, folks. So grab another brew.
Or in the morning we'll finish.
I think just like from my point of view on that, I think, you know, and brilliant presentation, Andy. And I think what it's done is it's sort of hopefully given everybody a bit of an idea, a bit of an insight. You know, there's some people that will be very well educated on this sort of thing, you know, and understand it very well. A number of people, I'm sure, that have suffered with mental health before. You know, I'm not afraid to admit that I'm one of those. You know, so it's coming out the end of it. It's having the support around you. You know, the people that you sort of need to help you get through these situations, and no matter what sort of money you're on. Everybody, I think, Emma, you said it early on, that everyone's human at the end of the day. So, that's my say on the player side. I think we have talked about the fans bit along, but when we come on to that next. Carl, do you want to give just a quick summary on that first part?
Me?
Yes,
Sorry,
Carl.
I was reading the comments.
Carl.
Yeah. So three points on a weekend makes or break it, doesn't it? I mean, if you win, you're all happy. You're looking forward to the next game. Everyone's in high spirits. But obviously we've suffered a lot of loss this season, so it really does affect your kind of your personal life, your mood at home, at work, at games as well. You might lash out a bit more towards referees. Obviously, Gavin's had a few letters recently, so yeah, he can relate to that.
That's libelous. What you just said there. Actually, it's not because it's true, but I wish it was libelous.
I got the beauty of a 20-minute drive to get home after the game, so sometimes 25 minutes. So I just sort of switch off and don't think about the game. And when I get home, I'm fine. So the psychological toll of relegation on supporters. Now, there is a distinct possibility, despite what Mike might say, that we could be playing in League One next season.
No way.
I'm not.
Really?
Mike keeps saying that no way, and I think no way as well. I think we've got a strong enough team there to get through this.
I don't think so.
We got Emma's
about to give us some.
I am a positive person, but I literally,
realist.
I think I've gone. I've actually gone. Like, I think like a few seasons ago, that derby match, we would have had the winner, and I think the difference between getting the winner there and then losing is just. It's just too much for us right now.
Well, actually, Emma, in the first half of the season, we would have had that ability to get that winner.
True.
When you think we've won 6 games all season and we need to win that in the remaining few, it's just not
no pressure.
And we've only got Sheffield United and Leeds. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, we love the bigger sides, Emma. We love the bigger sides.
True.
So go on, Andy.
So when you support a struggling team like Plymouth Argyle, currently at the minute, stress responses are similar to real life threats, and you're absolutely right. You know, increased cortisol, stress hormone, can lead to higher blood pressure. I don't know what they think about that. Sleep disturbances and increased risk of anxiety or depression. Yeah, I certainly feel that. If we've lost a game, I'm really down the following day. I think it was a Cardiff game. I came home from the Cardiff game and I was right mood all afternoon and all night. I didn't speak to anyone, and that really affected me. And so that does happen. The anxiety and depression, the thoughts, you go down rabbit holes and think, oh, we're going to go down and all this, what we're going to play next season, sort of stuff. The emotional roller coaster can cause fatigue, mood swings, and irritability. Yeah, I can put my hands up to both of them, on all of them. And then the body experiences, as we've touched on the fight or flight responses during matches, lead to adrenaline surges. You know, how many times have I looked across at Mike because he's in the same row as me, and he's up on his feet, and probably Mike has looked across at me, and I'm up on my feet because the linesman was just given offside or whatever, or a bad decision. So on the terrace,
my heart rate on Saturday in the second half, sitting down, might have said a few swear words. It was 103 on my Apple Watch. I was like, oh, that's why I'm a bit.
Yeah,
so that's about normal for me.
Yeah,
and that's worrying in some ways, because I mean, how many times, guys, have we seen this season people being seen to by the emergency services at game because they've had heart failure or something that, you know, it's happening too common these days.
Yeah,
players, not just players, but fans are sort of, you know, having heart attacks and because of their team. You know,
every week
it's massive.
Yeah.
Moving on to the impact on family life. We talked about
you don't look very happy,
coming home, 20-minute drive home. So that I've got it out of my system. I've had a rant in the car. I put some music on, normally Motorhead or something like that, or Marillion, and I'll calm down. You know, but short-tempered interactions with people at home, yeah, definitely. I've had that. I used to have a daughter. I used to have a daughter.
What kind of argument was that?
She didn't live at home anymore. But she used to ask that question, or did they lose then? And of course, that sort of bring back the rage of the defeat. Mood swings after bad results, yeah, got that totally. Lack of sleep, not so much. Poor appetite.
What was that about lack of sleep?
Yeah, I know that.
Lack of sleep. Sorry, yeah, you're probably all bored now listening to me rattle on. Partner and children may feel neglected or frustrated. Yeah, absolutely. If you're sitting there and you're still mulling over this defeat or whatever, you can sort of, you know, just detach yourself from your family. You think, oh, what's all that about? Why is he in a grumpy mood? Why is he in a grumpy mood?
Another podcast.
Why are you getting upset? It's only a game of football.
Yeah. Do you know that's the worst thing that someone can say to you? Yeah. It's only a game. I hate it. I've got a mate called Malcolm Haynes who says that to me all the time. It's only a game, and it really gets my goat because it's more than a game to me. And it can create social withdrawal, so avoiding stuff, family activities like going out for a walk on Sunday, whatever, after a match, after defeats or stuff like that. So
here's a question. Here's a question. Like you like your walks, Andy, but Emma, what do you do when regardless of whether it's football or what is your go-to to help you sort of clear your head, and sort of just bring life back into context?
I do sea swimming, which is a bit odd. Some people don't like it, but I love it. So I live quite close to Hope Cove. That is a lovely place to go. So yeah, I'd started doing that in lockdown. So yeah, if I'm particularly stressed, I'll go and do that.
Hence the dry robe.
Well, yeah, with my dry robe. Yeah.
So an actual proper use for a dry robe.
If you're swimming in the sea, apparently, but not at home park. But I actually, going back to like the Pompey match, I had to give my husband my phone and pace around the front room for 10 minutes at the end, and I just said, don't tell me until it's finished, because I was so convinced that Pompey were going to score.
11-minute stoppage time.
I was like, just tell me when it's finished and then tell me what the score is. And he told me, and I was like, honestly, he was like, I've never seen you so stressed. And I was like, I don't know why, but I just can't. Like, I can't.
Is he an Argyle fan, Emma?
No, he's rugby. He's
right.
Pure
There you go.
rugby.
So yeah,
so he doesn't like football at all. He just doesn't get it. So he's just laughing at me most of the time. And then when I came home from Derby the other day, I was just in a foul mood, and he was like, "Oh yeah, they lost, didn't they?" And I was like, "Yeah," like, and we were at the bottom of the table.
Tell me something new.
And he's just like, whatever. So yeah, it's annoying when people don't take it as seriously as you care, like so that's why it's nice to talk like on Twitter, and we've got the there's a Facebook group for female fans, which is quite nice, because we can like rant about various things in there.
It's half the reason why these kind of pods exist, so like-minded people can come and have a good win.
Yeah, I just listen to you guys ranting as well.
In a calm and calculated manner, hopefully. Carl, how do you sort of deal with any difficult days or football results, etc.?
I try and cheer myself up by watching Marley and Me. That works.
Carl just embarrassed himself to 287 people on X.
Cheerful movie.
No, just like Andy said, going out for walks, doing family things, taking your kids to the park, just anything to try and switch off. Going out doing photography, just take your mind off things. Yeah.
And Gavin?
I'll normally grab. I've got a 5-year-old girl, actually, not boys like Emma. Normally grab them, go to the Hoe, watch them kick around and cry around rock pools and go, why am I getting stressed over a game of football when I've got these two little beasts to look after? It doesn't have to put things into perspective, doesn't it? Let's be candid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does, and I'm much of the same in a sense of, I sort of, where I live just down the bottom of Southway Drive in Tammet and Foley, I've got a good walk up, and it's about a 30-minute walk up to the range head office there, and I like doing that where I can, and actually it helps clear the mind, and sort of I'm always constantly spinning ideas in my head, but you walk up and it bit of fresh air, luckily this week a bit of sunshine as well with the cold, just helps clear it out. And take the little ones. Ben's more into his iPad now, but we can still drag him out and Sophie and go to the park. Yeah, absolutely. No, what? Sorry.
Brilliant.
So you can drag him out to an airport.
To be fair, though, I have to say to Ben, it's certainly interesting when you go and see planes from a spotting point of view, and having been able to tell him because of the role that I did, flying on A380s, going over to China and America, I've been privileged because of my job to do that. But so he's yet to go on a plane. He will be doing it in August when we go away. So so that's exciting. So that's how I.
So what happens, Mike? Right, if I go right home when you're going flying away.
Well, the problem is who's going to come on and do the hosting of this fantastic Block 9 podcast?
That'll be Voodoo's first live.
We'll all move on.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I'm bringing this back up. You see?
Yeah. No pressure.
No. So what we got?
Okay.
We're right on
final
11
section.
o'clock. Yeah. What we got to end on?
Final section. We can whiz through this, right? It does affect our work life as well. We've already talked about work as well. It lowers our concentration levels. You get post-match emotions. Rather than go to the pub and talk about it, or come to a podcast and talk about it, we'd take it into work. We sort of become absent in some ways. Put a sickie every so often because we just cannot face going in there to face people. You get debates as well. You can get heated debates with all sorts of people, even online and stuff, even at work. If you got a guy who supports another team, and they come in and say, "Oh, your team were crap at the weekend, weren't they?" Then that's red rag to bull. And then you got daily interactions. You suffer stress and disappointment may overtake, and then grumpy loyal sort of might come in. You become distant in conversations, and then some fans might isolate themselves socially to avoid ridicule, especially if you're an Argyle fan these days. To avoid ridicule or discussion about football, to avoid it, and that's avoidance technique, which isn't bad.
Well, I do.
And that is the end of my presentations. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's still awake.
Well done, Andy. Very good.
Yeah, well, mate,
wait for the effects. Will it do it? Come on, Mac. Do it. Oh, come on. There we go. Carl's, there we go. Andy, absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I think as Gavin's struggling in the background there, but I think what's great is that we were able to share our own experiences and talk about those and really bring the conversation and the debate about mental health is massively important out there. So it's good to sort of look at different angles of the football and the game that we love. And just to add, let me go to it. So Andy is a qualified counsellor. So because you matter, if you want to pick up a service with Andy, if it's something, if you're watching tonight and you feel like, do you know what? Yeah, I need some outlet. Andy does offer a service, and claim your 50% off. Mention the Block 9. He'll make you a cup of tea as well. So yeah, take him up on that. You can see contact number at the bottom, andrewlaidlawcounselling.com. I mean, Andy, you need to be counselled on your domain names. That's ridiculously long. So
it is. I'm just about to spell it.
So there's that. But yeah, brilliant job. And just to sort of, I don't know if Ben Collins is still watching because he has been waiting forever. The merchandising side of things, just a shout. Yes, there we are. Marcus and Steve have been in the comments tonight. So we get to stages where we can't have everybody in, unfortunately. But yes, we are. I'm close now. These are finished mugs that I'm happy with. They look fantastic, in fairness, I would say that, but the wife has done a fantastic job of taking my artwork and putting that onto the mugs, and they are absolutely brilliant. So how can you get round to buying these? Because I know you all really want to rush out there now. I mean, no, they won't be in your local range store, maybe. But we have got a bit of a plug out. But I am working on a website for us and a shop as well. So we've got a few more things and ideas people were speaking to bring you some more content. Like we said with Emma tonight, we want to get some more Argyle ladies on board. And please get in touch with either myself or on the channel or Emma. If you know Emma or you want to sort of get involved with this, we've got some great ideas. So from that, I'm just going to move back to as people are being naughty in the chat, Carl. Disgusting behaviour. But anyway, so look, everybody, really appreciate you sticking with us tonight. You can find us obviously on YouTube at the Block 9 Podcast, obviously on X as well, where we're streaming tonight. We've all got our own accounts. You can go and look us up. Please give all those channels a follow. Please tell your friends and family what a fantastic show this is. But this is many things that we like to do that are different. We're not going to be on Sunday. I think actually from a mental point of view, certainly prepping and trying to get these shows organised. A nice weekend would do me the world of good. The Formula One is back, and I'm a massive F1 fan, so I get to enjoy that. But absolutely, really appreciate you all sticking with us, and I hope you enjoyed that presentation. We will condense this down and put it on YouTube. We'll also share the presentation once the website's live. I expect that to be the case by the end of the week, and we'll retweet that out. But look, Carl, Gav, Andy, as always, thank you very much. And Emma, the star of the show, and as absolutely Voodoo said tonight, put Emma in charge. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Emma, I've got some quick fire questions to end on though. So
Oh, God.
here we go. Favorite band?
Backstreet Boys.
Favorite song?
Oh, God. Probably something by Celine Dion, but that's
Oh, not Backstreet Boys. Okay, fair enough then.
No.
Favorite food?
Probably a curry.
Oh yeah. Favorite place? Not Plymouth.
No, Salcombe or Hope Cove, probably.
Yeah, like that. And the hope for the survival is even better. Current favorite Argyle player?
Oh, I would say Maxi, because I'm 1/4 Ukrainian. So
yes.
yeah, when he came, I was very excited. My family in Ukraine are very excited that he's playing for us. So
Oh, I love that. Nice one.
Cool.
And your favorite player of old?
do you know what? My favorite player recently has been Pan Kamara. I just loved him when he played for us. But yeah, like older, probably Mickey Evans. I loved him. I met him a few times. He was just amazing. Just like pure Argyle.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask this one anyway. It's caused a bit of debate on a certain forum of the club. Miron staying at Miron, yes or no? Sorry.
Yeah.
Backing. Yeah, good.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right answer.
Right answer. You can come back.
Argyle staying up or going down?
I'm sorry. I think we're going down. I don't want us to, but I think we are. And I think hopefully he gets a whole summer and gets some money if this investment ever comes through. And I'm quite excited to see what happens next season. But yeah, I just think we're not good enough.
No. Well, look, we'll soon find out. If I just have egg on my face again, wouldn't be the first time. In terms of next week's show, so on our next live lounge, we've been doing some work, or Gavin, I should say, in the main, has been doing some work to piece together Miron's style and what he achieved during his time at Cercle Bruges. So for all those, it's just hoofball and it's rubbish. We're not playing pretty football anymore.
No
I
plan
don't want to see
B,
this.
No plan C.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're gonna have a brilliant piece on that, which we'll do on next Thursday. Just before then, we obviously have the Watford away game, so come and join us for that one. But look, yeah,
Is
brilliant.
Is this a good time to advertise the Block 9 neck braces?
Neck braces.
Yeah, for the Miron football.
I
Come
don't
on,
need it. I
Michael.
set up the grandstand. You're right.
We shall ban Carl from trying to come up with any more jokes on the show going
I've still
forward.
got my David Kemp one.
Right, it is 8 minutes past 11, so
Bedtime.
we let you all go. But thank you for joining us tonight, and have a rest of your evening, rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Until